Today we're going to talk about the 5 power tools that you absolutely need to have around the house if you're going to be doing any kind of renovations or fixing anything up. So to start this list off, we got this set right here. Now I was really torn about which tool to make first. Was it the impact driver or was it the drill? Well, because these things come as a combo kit, and the combo kit usually has a battery of some sort and the charger, I'd highly recommend to just buy them as a kit because you're probably going to save some money over buying the two individually, and you're going to end up needing them anyway. If you really are strapped for cash and you need only the absolute must-have tool, just pick one of the two. You probably can't go wrong with either of them. If you need something more compact, this is probably the go-to. It's the tool that I reach for the absolute most. I guess the only thing that you kind of got to watch out for if you're picking up an impact driver is if you're planning on drilling holes and stuff with it, make sure that you have impact bits in your size and the bits that you intend on using. You can pretty much do any handyman tasks with the impact driver. The bigger stuff you're gonna need the drill for. So I was really torn. They always come as a kit anyway, so I'd say go with a kit. I highly recommend going with the Milwaukee Fuel brand, and I've used a bunch of different power tools over the years, different brand names. Milwaukee's my go-to. I'm not sponsored by them but in any way, shape, or form. I wish I was, actually. If you're here from Milwaukee, I'd love some more tools. The only bad thing I have to say about the Milwaukee brand is the triggers can be a little ornery from time to time. The good news is if they fail, they usually happen underneath warranty, and it's not a big deal if you need to replace them. They're way better tools than their yellow competitor or any of their other competitors. I've used all of them. I'm pretty sure I've used all of them. Anyway, the biggest reason why I like the brand is not only do the tools have just an insane amount of power, the battery sets that come with these things, they're all interchangeable. So if you buy a battery kit with this tool set, you're gonna get batteries that'll work in all the tools that I'm gonna mention later on in this video. Okay, so that's number 1. So we got an impact driver or a drill or both. Next up, any handyman's go-to for cutting stuff off and losing sawdust here. As you can tell, it's also a tool that I use frequently, is a skill saw. Now, you can do just about anything you want with a skill saw. As far as cutting, you can do miter cuts with this thing. It just becomes a little more challenging, and you'll need some kind of a straight edge to kind of go line up on either edge to get a good result. As far as you don't need a table saw, you can do without a miter saw if you absolutely have to, but you're gonna need a skill saw at some point in time. This is my recommended go-to. Again, Milwaukee. The same batteries that work with that drill kit will work with this saw as well. So great tool. This thing has an absolute ton of power versus any of the other 18 volts that I've used. I have no problem ripping wet 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x8s, 2x10s, 2x12s even I've cut with this thing. 4x4s as well. Although I don't think it went through all the way on the 4x4. I do believe I did have to flip it over and do it again. But anyway, tool works great. I've got no complaints. My number 2 as 2 tools that you should buy. And in case you hadn't figured it out, I'm trying to make this in the order that you should buy these tools, or that you'll probably end up needing these tools to try to help you guys out if you're brand new and just starting to kind of doing it yourself at home. Okay, for number 3, I had to think about number 3 a little bit because I wasn't entirely sure if I should swap number 3 and number 4. Anyway, this is the one I came up with for number 3, in my opinion, of tools in which to buy, and it's an oscillating tool. Now, you can do an absolute ton with an oscillating tool. You can use this thing in many different ways. The reason I put this one in number 3 is if you're installing any kind of flooring, which is probably one of the projects you'll tackle earliest on, the oscillating tool will let you undercut underneath moldings, which is probably, that in itself makes this tool worth it. So if you're thinking of doing flooring. That being said, if you're trimming out anything or need any corners or tight spots to get into, cutting through drywall, cutting through whatever, this thing will just cut through whatever. Just make sure you get the right blades for whatever use that you're planning on using. I mean, obviously like a metal blade for metal stuff or a multi-purpose blade or whatever the heck you're cutting off. Just make sure that you're not using a wood blade on metal and you'll love this tool a long time. Same batteries as earlier. They work either or. You can use the little guy or bigger one, or there's a monster one too, but I mean, you honestly don't need it. These tools are all well balanced with either battery, and I mean, it sits really nice in your hand. No problem flipping this thing around. It's very maneuverable, variable speed with an on and off, like whatever. Okay, so the number 4 tool that you're gonna pick up, or that I think you're gonna need to pick up, is a Sawzall. I have yet to find another Sawzall that's not a two-handed tool. This thing, I do recommend using the bigger battery, and only for one reason. The smaller battery works just fine. You're gonna get more runtime, which is the biggest feature, but it balances the tool very well. So you'll have no problem doing this with one-handed operation. So if you're cutting something inside the house, that's fantastic. The plus part about using this tool versus the other Sawzall tools is you can actually have this hand to hold on to whatever you're cutting. So for pruning branches is one of the common uses I have for this tool. It's very easy to get up on a ladder. You still have a hand free, and you can hold onto the branch when you get to the top. Brace yourself instead of having to use 2 hands to try to cut. This, in my mind, is the most superior hacksaw, sawzall, whatever you want to call this tool, multi-cut tool. Blades for this thing, they come in all kinds of different blades. You get metal blades, you can get a multi-purpose blade, the wood blade, the pruning blade, whatever. Great tip. But the only downside to this tool is every now and again, the swivel nut at the end here. The swivel nut will bind up a little bit, so you'll have to lube this thing up. Any kind of good lubricant, just give it a drop or two. I don't know, every 6 months, and you'll be just fine. I've had no complaints with this tool. It's been great, awesome, tons of power. I've got no problem pruning off branches as big as the blade I can find for it. Alrighty, so next tool on the list. This is not a absolutely have to get tool. This is the bonus. We're in the bonus section, I think, right? Tool number 5? Tool number 6, whatever. Apparently I've got counting issues today. Is a jigsaw. You don't always need a jigsaw. You can replace it with the oscillating tool. However, you're trying to make really nice finishing cuts at good angles, the stuff that you've got marked out really well, you're just gonna get a better result on this than you will with an oscillating tool that we mentioned earlier. I've only used this tool a handful of times, but when I do need this tool, it is really, really nice. It works really good with a thin blade. You pre-drill your hole, stick the blade in the hole, and you can cut very tight corners and stuff, and it does a great job. Lots of power. I really like it. It's a limited use tool, so you're not going to be using this nearly as often as the other tools. But when you need this thing, it's really nice to have this thing around. So I'm going to put it on my list. I'm going to include it anyway. Okay, last but not least. Yes, I know it's going to be yellow, and I'm not going to recommend this tool, but it's the one I have right now. And the reason why I have switched from yellow, it's not because they don't make good tools. They do make good tools, and I do like them. They're just not as good as the Milwaukee that I've been using. And my biggest beef with DeWalt is the batteries. These guys and their batteries. You need about 95 different batteries to go through their lineup, whereas the Milwaukee Fuel line, you get the M18, you get one battery, and everything swaps around. The only difference is some batteries are just going to last way longer than other batteries. The other thing about the DeWalt batteries, as you can see here, those are not the factory screws. This battery didn't last very long before I rebuilt it, and I found that was pretty much the case with DeWalt batteries in general. I ended up rebuilding just about every DeWalt battery I ever had, and the funny thing is after I rebuild them, they last longer than the factory ones. I don't think that should ever be the case with a power tool manufacturer. That being said, okay, enough ranting about the different brands and the batteries. This tool, the blower, first off, you're gonna buy one, buy the Milwaukee. I'll leave the link to the one I would buy today if anything happens to this tool, or I might just swap it out anyway because it's nice to have universal batteries for everything. Little side rant. This is a tool where you're gonna pick this thing up and you're not gonna realize you like this tool until you have it. Once you have it and once you've used it, you're gonna wonder how you ever did without it. It's great for blowing cobwebs and stuff around off the house. Good for blowing off the deck, leaves anywhere that you got on the driveway. Instead of a broom in the garage, we use this thing a lot. Out of the power tools on the list, this is probably number 3 or 4 as far as use goes, and I can't imagine life without it. This will easily blow 1 inch to 2 inches of dry snow, no problem, and it's fast. It's way faster than pulling out a snowblower or pulling out a shovel, and it cleans it right down to the concrete. So for that reason, this tool is on the list as a must-have. Get a battery-powered version. Don't bother getting a gas 2-stroke version. The only downside to it is probably you're going to need 2 batteries to go through an entire driveway if you're doing a lot of blowing with it. But if you're taking my advice and going with the Milwaukee line, you're going to have at least 2 batteries anyway, so what does it matter? Use one, chuck it on the charger, they charge up quick. This guy almost does my driveway. Like, so close. If it's just snow, it'll clean the driveway off, but it's not quite there to do the whole driveway in one go. Anywho, I don't even think they make this model anymore anyway. If they did, I would not recommend anybody get this one. Not because of the volume, not because of the amount of air that this thing pushes, but I've had so many things get sucked into here because it's against your side. I just don't feel it's a good design. I think the rear intake port blowers are much better. Anyway, would you put other tools in front of other tools? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, what your opinion is. Do you have a different brand name of tools that you really like? If so, leave them down below. One piece of advice, if you're starting out and you're getting your tools kind of ready, pick out a brand before you buy any tools. If the brand is reviewed positively, check the batteries. Really check the batteries. You want to make sure that they're cross-compatible across all their other tool lineups, because you'll be amazed at how quickly you'll accumulate a whole ton of these things, and it's a real pain in the butt if you can't swap them in between tools. I mean, that's the other reason I'm a big fan of the Milwaukee. I think they're priced very honestly, and I think the value for the buck is the best out of any power tool that's out there right now, and that's clearly why I have them, and that's what I've been using. Okay, so if you like this video and you want to see what tools that I'd recommend for plumbing, I'll put the link to the video up here as soon as it's made.